Hello, Malik Carrington here, Family Budget Fisherman. Thank you for tuning in to another special episode on this channel. Yeah, you read it in the thumbnail and in the description below the thumbnail. Let me bring this down just a little bit there. We're going to be talking about the best universal bass baits. The emphasis in the feature will be on those of us who own high-end rod reel combos, but this will be for everyone. So let's get started. All right, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for, keeping up with the channel. Again, you read it in the thumbnail and in the description below. As I've said in the intro, we're going to be talking about some of the best universal bass baits. I mean, baits that you can use when right now we're in late spring, summer, fall, and in the winter, without having to change anything on your rod reel combos. I would suggest though that you have at least 2 rods in order to achieve this, and the reason why just happens to be the kind of line that you would use. So for example, this is the Zodius, and this right here, the guidelines on here are the lure rating is 3/16 on the low end, 1/2 on the high end, and the line recommendation is between 5-pound test and 10-pound test. And I have an 8-pound test fluoro clear on here, and all the baits that I'm going to show you that would work for this rod are within 1/2 inch, I think, save one, which will go on a different rod. So for example, and we're going to start off with our top water baits. Here's the popper. The popper, for example. Now, yes, I have fluoro clear on here, and yes, you would like to have braid on here, so I would suggest going with a Finn's 10-pound test braid, or even an Endurex 10-pound test braid or 15-pound test braid. But let's say all you got is the fluoro clear. You can still throw it on fluoro clear. What you have to do when you have sinking lines and you're doing top water is you have to keep a direct line to it, very little slack. And you can do that with poppers. So you could toss the popper with this. You can throw poppers winter, spring, summer, and fall. Yes, you can. And can catch fish. Now, you have to target your fishing when you're using a popper, or for that matter, any top water bait. But always remember, everything alive has to eat, and they have to eat in the dead of winter. It doesn't matter if it's snow covering the water. Fish still got to eat if they're going to stay alive. So they will be looking in traditional places. They'll be looking up top. They'll be looking mid column, and they're going to be looking on the bottom, to go ahead and eat. So you can definitely throw that. Let me set this down. You can throw, so when it comes to your top water baits, you can throw that. And also, this is considered a top-ish water bait. This is a toad, okay? I would not recommend a frog, but definitely a toad for winter bait. And I've seen a lot of, for whatever reason, there's a lot of beginner bass fishing shows where they talk about certain types of baits that they think that you'd want to throw. They don't talk much about a toad, but they talk about a frog. Yes, frog is very important when it comes to bass fishing, but that's called specialty fishing. There's a lot of fishing that we do that are specialty fishing. Here's another example of specialty fishing. This right here is a propeller bait, and this is by 6 Cents, called the Scramble, okay? This is their take on the Whopper Plopper, as you can see here. This is their take on the Whopper Plopper. I would not throw this on that. I would actually get a different one, and I had all this organized. I don't know why it's all of a sudden starting to fall. I had all this organized. I would put it on a stiffer rod like this Cash and Icon series. Yes, this is a drop shot rod. This is a weighted drop shot rod, but I got this outfitted with 6-pound test diameter 45-pound test braid with a Daiwa ballistic with 22 pounds of of drag on it, you could throw a whopper plopper on this and be very successful. Matter of fact, you could throw a whopper plopper on it, or you can throw a super spook on it. Okay. Now, can you catch fish on these during the wintertime? Yes. Bass as well. They're more of a morning time bait if you're in some of the southern states and you want to throw in the water's warmer, I should say. Yeah, you can throw that at that time. So I would definitely recommend that you throw those even in the dead of winter. You could definitely throw those. Okay, so that's a top water. Also, now going to mid column, we're looking more at your crankbaits, because you can throw crankbaits in the winter. Okay, you can throw them all year long. Here we have our jerk baits. Okay, jerk baits runs more like your toads, top-ish, but they also are mid column, and then they're also bottom contact on both of these. So these are going to be unique in that presentation. So your mid column ones, you would also throw all of your swim baits. Okay, and here are two examples of the swim baits here. Okay, I think this is a Berkeley Crush City bait, and this one is X-Zone Lures right here. Your Vision 110s, your jerk baits. You can throw these. These are your mid columns. You can throw these. You can also throw your curly tails. 2.5, I would say 3 inches would be your sweet spot. Okay. Also, and when it comes to swim baits, stay within the 3 to 4 inch range. I know people will say, well, you need to go to 5 inch. Once you go past 5 inches on a swim bait, you're getting into specialty. Okay. Same thing goes for if you're going to be throwing your chatterbaits. Okay. You have 3/8 and 1/2 inch. Okay. Now, once you get past 1/2 inch, you're getting into specialty. Once you get into trailers that are longer than 4 inches, you're getting into specialty. Okay, trust me on this one. You get into specialty. This is more universal, where you can take it anywhere and catch baits. This happens to be a 3.5 inch trailer on this jackhammer right here, and as you can see, it's been used up. I have caught some fish over the last few weeks on that jackhammer. Yes. Then let's move to our bottom contact baits. Same thing for the bottom contact baits. Now you have several types of bottom contact baits. You got your crawls, and your crawls can have swing head jigs, swing head weights, or you can also have weights that are on the actual hook itself, wrapped around that hook right there. Okay, and here's another example. Same thing, crawl baits. All right, or you can have it jig style with a non-swing head, permanent there. So those are your crawl baits and things that imitate crawls, and sometimes other fish. You got your jigs, and this is a 3/8 ounce football head, and this is a 1/4 ounce, I believe. Yeah, 1/4 ounce. And this is good for grass. This is the different head is good for grass. And you can throw both of these actually on either one of those two rods that I just presented, the Icon or the Zodius, even with 8-pound tests. Yes, you can throw a 3/8 ounce because the rating on that rod is 1/2 ounce and the 8-pound test is in there. Now, would you feel comfortable doing it in this day and time? Probably not. You probably want to use the higher braided lines for it, but you can use that if that's what you have. Here's another one. So these are not often used, but your tube baits. Okay, tube baits work every season for all 4 seasons, and they can be suspended in the mid column or bottom contact. Okay, we can't forget about our Ned rigs. Ned rigs are probably the most popular bottom contact worm thrown around today. Okay, they're even beating out the Texas rigs. and you got your Texas rigs. You can do your stick bait Texas rig. This is not a Texas rig. This is a jig rig. By the way, I recommend if you're going to Texas rig and you don't want that weight moving around, go down a little bit on the weight. So you go from a 3/8 to a 3/16, for example, or a 3/16 to a 1/8, and use a jig head. A lot of bass fishermen don't like to use jig head hooks for different baits. This works out really, really good. Okay. Matter of fact, I use jig heads a lot. Here we go. Once again, curly tail and another stick bait. Okay. I caught my personal best bass in my area on this very lure setup. And then of course you have your creature style. Okay. Doing the same thing. And all of these are your bottom contact baits. Okay, so, and then you have those who swing in between. Of course, we can't forget the inline spinners. Okay, for those of us who know and remember the whole inline spinner craze we used to have. And if you're going to get, it can get a little interesting, but you can do a Texas rig. This is a tungsten weight here. This is a 1/2 ounce tungsten. Or you can stretch this out and make it a Carolina rig. And you can do that all on your winter baits. So again, I presented with you a whole lot of stuff that you could do as a beginning bass fisherman, featuring your high-end rod reel combos. But this can apply even if you're doing ugly stick combos. You know, I always have to say that for the people in the back. So take a look at what I've shared with you here, and we're going to continue to grow based on this. But in all of your getting, always remember, don't do anything to break your family's budget trying to buy any of this equipment, but by every legal and ethical means. Do me a favor, get out there and get your best, your personal best. I don't know why I keep messing that up. Get out there and catch your personal best. I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Be blessed.